Hi everyone. I wanted to take a moment to make a brief video about one of the parts of assignment 4, specifically parts 7 and 8 down here. When you get to the later part of this assignment, we ask you to do some work with files. And so the first thing we ask you to do is take the text that the user has typed in and save it to a file. And then we also ask you to kind of do the opposite. Take the contents of a file and incorporate it into your program. And in order to accomplish that, we point you to a couple of APIs, this out API and this in API. So I just wanted to make a brief video to show you some of the basics of how to use the out and in APIs to help you through this kind of tricky part of the assignment. So I made a simple program here. This program takes a file and makes a copy of it. That's what it does, and it shows off some of the basics of how to use the in and out APIs. The first thing you'll notice up here at the top are a couple of import statements. You're likely going to need these in order to access in and out in your code, so take note of those and add them to your file when you're ready to start tackling these parts. The next thing that we'll see in this code is I actually create what are called references to the files that I want to manipulate. In this particular case, I'm going to read in the information from the in file and I'm going to copy it to the out file. So I have made the in file here and I've given the name of the input file that I expect to read the information from. And then I've made an output file and I've given it a name for the file to be created that will contain the copy of the input file. All right. The next thing that I do in this simple program is I put a little while loop here. This actually looks similar to some code that I suspect you may have in an earlier part of your program. I'm basically saying while there are more characters to be read from the input file, take one character from the input file and print it to the output file. It's a little bit different than how we're used to printing, right? Normally when we print things, they show up down here at the bottom of the screen in the console. But in this particular circumstance, we want to print things to the file. So since I'm using print in conjunction with the file here, this is going to, read a character from the input, print it to the output. Okay? And I can mark this up too. While there are more characters to be read. Okay? And then once that's done, so this while loop is going to run once for each letter. It's going to copy the file one character at a time. So this loop's going to run once for each character, copy it to the output file. Once this is done, we've successfully made our copy, and then it's important to close our files when we're done with them. So that's what these final two lines do down here, right? So if I try to run this program right now, you'll see that I actually get an error, and it's telling me that it could not open input file.txt, right? It couldn't open it. The reason for that is because it can't find it. It doesn't know where this file is. In fact, if I look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that there is no such file called input.txt. It does not currently exist. So if I want to, I can make that file. And the way to do that is to right-click on the very top here where it says Assignment 4 and go to New. And I'm going to go down to Untitled Text File. And here I'll put in some contents. Hello. And then I'll save it. And it wants me to tell it what to call it. I'm going to call it, I need to make sure to call it exactly the same thing that I called it in my code, which is inputfile.txt. So I'm going to call it inputfile.txt. And then the parent folder, the folder where I want it to go is just this one right here. So I'll click on that to indicate that's where I want it to go. This is important. If the file is in a different folder, if it's in the wrong place, it will not be able to find the file. So if you don't have this exact name of the file inside of this exact folder, Eclipse won't be able to find it. So it's very important that you get the names matched up and get the locations correct here. If I try to run this program now, you can see that the error is gone, right? But it didn't show me anything. and I have no indication. I don't see the output file, right? I don't see the copy either. Well, the fact that there's not an error is actually a good sign. That's an indication that the program actually did work. In order to see if it went to the file, I have to go up here to my project and right click and go to refresh. And now you can see that once I've refreshed the project, I can see that this copy.txt is here, and if I open it up, I can see that it does in fact have all of the contents of the original file that I started with. So I have successfully made a copy, right? So that kind of wraps up this simple example. I just wanted to kind of point out some of the tricky parts of this. You are welcome to, of course, delete the input and output files if you need to retest your program, right? Just make sure that you're careful about the naming and where they go, and remember to refresh your project. The other thing the last thing that I want to point you to is these links for the out API and the in API are going to be very handy for you to have available when you are working on this. And so you can see that the functions that I use, the methods that I use, close is right there and print is here as well, are available to you to read. You can read more information about what they do. So definitely keep those open as you're working on this. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you have any more questions.